Hey, this is Ish, and today I want to talk to you about an old Taoist tale on mastery. So, this tale starts with an old butcher named Ting. His name is Cook Ting, and he was preparing a ox to carve out for the Lord Wen Hui at the time. And Wen Hui was watching Cook Ting carve the ox into different pieces, and he was just amazed at the proficiency at which the Master Ting was cutting up the ox. So it was almost like his movements were like a dance. It was very fluid, and he was able to cut up the ox without hitting any kind of ligaments or any stoppages, and it was a clean movement. And Lord Henway was very impressed by him and asked him, "Wow, how did you do that?" So Cook Ting responds that at the moment, he uses the Wei. This is the Wei in Taoism, which is he relies on the space within to guide his movements. But it wasn't always the case. So when he had first started, he saw the entire ox as it was, and he tried to divide the ox up into different parts that he would cut, and he'd make a lot of mistakes. And then 3 years in, he didn't see the whole ox, but rather he compartmentalized the different pieces that he knew he was going to cut, and his movements became a bit more smoother. But after a period of time of practicing his movements and repetition over the years, he became very proficient. And at this point, he could almost do it blindfolded. So he could intuitively feel the senses of where he was going to go, and he could feel into the spaces of where he was going to place his knife rather than using his mind and concepts. And this relates to the stages of competency. So, at the hierarchy of competence, at the very lowest levels, you have unconscious incompetence. So, this is where you don't even know how bad you are because you've just never done an action or never thought of it. And then the next step above this is conscious incompetence. So now that you've taken action, you now specifically know how bad you are, and it might shock you at first. And then after some practice, you have conscious competence. So now you are able to perform and do well. And then the last stage is where Cook Ting is at, and this is unconscious competence. So unconscious competence is where you're able to perform at a very high level without even thinking about it. This becomes a state of no mind. And this is a very powerful place to be. And you can see this in any kind of activity, sport, whatever the case is in your life, where there's different stages. So I'll use meditation as an example. So when people originally start meditating, they at first, before starting, they are completely unaware of how their mind works and how to deal with the thoughts and other emotions. So they have a stage what is called ignorance, where they are ignorant of their mind and they identify with the ego a lot. So they aren't even aware that they can use a practice like meditation to help better themselves. And then once they start meditating, this is where you get into that space of conscious incompetence. So now they realize how badly their mind runs their life and they're unable to control it. So before they had no knowledge of this whole art, but now they realize how bad they are. And then through practice of sitting through your meditation, you gradually develop the stage of conscious competence. And now you're able to sit for your meditation and you're actually able to center your mind and not be swayed by the pulls of your emotions and different thought patterns and aversions. So now you gain some competence. But then one step above is the stage of unconscious competence. So in the conscious competence stage, you're still losing yourself once you left your meditation mat. But in unconscious competence, you have essentially become one with meditation. So if you ever look at high-level masters of meditation, they say that meditation is their being and all activities come from that space that you build through your meditation. They call this a oneness or awareness. So all their activities actually come from this space that they've created in their meditation. And they're able to sustain that space throughout all their activities. So that's how these people that have a lot of meditation hours under their belt, they're able to sustain this long-lasting meditation over periods of time. And it never wavers because that's just who they are. And you can also see there's a lot of like studies on this, and a great book to read is Altered Traits. And in this book, they study how for beginner practitioners, they're never able to to actually control their mind and they struggle with it, but they do experience some benefits. And over time, they gain more of that experience and they're able to control their mind. But then the effects of meditation just disappears after they leave their cushion. So they might sit for an hour and then they go out and their spouse or parent or whoever the case is annoys them, and then they lose that composure that they've built up. And then for long-term meditators, people who've done over 10,000 hours of meditation in their lifetime, and even up to 60,000, which is like an insane number, for them, meditation has become part of their being. So the same headspace that you would feel after doing, let's just say, an hour of meditation, that's how they feel all the time when they're doing groceries, when they're going out to do, get gas, fill up gas, or working out. They just feel this overwhelming like bliss and peacefulness throughout their day because they've developed such an high level of competency that it's pervaded their being. You can see at different stages of mastery. In the beginning, you're in a state of no mind where you don't think about things, but you're just so bad that you just don't know where to begin. It's like people who say that they can fight without even having ever fought before because they just have no knowledge of what that would be like. So you can see the videos like this on YouTube where some untrained fighter would think that he can, fight a skilled fighter, and he just ends up like losing really badly. But eventually, and then once he starts to get into the practice, he is aware of what he needs to work on, because now he's like, oh wow, I didn't realize how bad I was. And then he slowly develops the conscious competency, and now he knows how to strike or how to do a certain move, and then he becomes proficient in it. But then eventually he comes to a point where it's unconscious competence. So now he can just, his instincts would just kick in. So if you ever were challenged to a fight or self-defense situation, he wouldn't have to think, and his movements will just guide him through repetition. And that's something Bruce Lee said a lot too, and he taught a lot of lessons. He combined a lot of the Eastern spirituality into meditation and fighting, and he found a way to combine both and bring that Taoism. He also studied Taoism as well. So I think that was kind of unique how he was able to bring that lessons into his martial arts too, and how the way or the space of being will naturally take over after a long period of focus and repetition. So that's just another cool story on mastery, and I hope you develop your skills. Thank you.